Welcome, listener, in the shadows. We bring stories into the light. Join me as we explore the encounters no one speaks of and the things that watch from the dark. If you're still here after all that, you already know the kind of stories we tell. The kind that crawl under your skin, that echo in the quiet when the episode ends. If you want to carry a piece of that darkness with you, wear what haunts you. Our exclusive line of merch is made for listeners who feel more at home in the uncanny, the unspoken, the things that don't make sense in the daylight. Shirts, hoodies, and other gear, designed with that same atmosphere of dread, mystery, and whispered wrongness. Candles support the channel, feed the stories. You can grab yours at https://theshadows printify me, and as always, don't look behind you. Unit 66, Chapter 1, Ghost Protocol. The Black Hawk blades thumped low over the frozen ridgelines of the Caucasus, dipping beneath radar as the grey dawn smeared along the mountain peaks like old blood. Inside the bird, Staff Sergeant Elias Renner checked his gear for the fourth time, not out of nervousness, but instinct. Nervousness didn't last long in Black Ops. You learned to kill it quick, or it killed you slower. Across from him, Lieutenant Mason Dyer stared at nothing. His eyes were open, but glassed, locked onto a mental HUD no one else could see. Renner had seen that look before. Dyer had read something in the briefing packet that turned the mission from clean and clear to crawl and hope. But he hadn't said a word since Wheels Up. 5 minutes, crackled the pilot over comms. No visuals past this ridge. Thermal blind zone. You're flying dead from here. Perfect. Renner clenched his jaw and looked at the rest of the team. Cruz, Asaro, Nguyen, solid shooters, no greenhorns. Each one had a 1,000-yard stare already locked in. No jokes, no tension release, just the cold hum of anticipation. Check mics, Dyer finally said, eyes still vacant. We go quiet in 30. No names once boots are down. Call by number. This is a whisper op. Eyes only. Understood, everyone nodded. Good, Dyer said, and snapped the final mag into his M4 like punctuation. Renner blinked down at the mission sheet, still flickering in his retinal overlay. Objective. Neutralize site, GR13. Codename. Verdon's secure data cores terminate active biocomputational systems, minimal collateral, zero trace. He'd read enough between the redactions to know they weren't walking into a factory. Verdon's had been online since the late 90s, but what it did, that part was scrubbed. All he knew was the facility had gone silent 2 weeks ago. Not offline, not shut down, silent, like a brain that stopped dreaming. The Black Hawk cut low across a glacial pass and banked hard. Ahead, shrouded in the snow lane, a squat concrete dome appeared, half buried, featureless, as if the mountain had tried to swallow it. On approach, the pilot muttered. Be advised, there's something off about the signal bounce, like the mountains echoing wrong. No one replied. They were already clipping ropes and prepping descent. Renner touched his earpiece. Unit 66, ground in 30, masks on, eyes sharp. The moment he dropped boots on the snow-packed concrete, Renner felt it. A pressure, not wind, not cold, like being watched through a wall you couldn't find. Inside, the facility opened like a fossil unearthed wrong. All cold steel and flickering lights. Lines of frozen terminals. Long walls etched with rust-colored streaks that weren't rust. Power still flowing, Cruz said, sweeping her rifle across a corridor choked in darkness. But the systems aren't reading it right. Every screen's blinking in a loop, same characters, repeating. Renner stepped closer. The screen wasn't glitching. It was writing, in perfect English. In his handwriting, I'm here, I remember this part. He stepped back like he'd touched flame, but no one else seemed to see it. Room clear, Asaro called from up ahead. We found a decon chamber. Open. Open meant breached. Someone had either left in a hurry or something else had come in. Dyer stepped in behind them slow. Maintain formation. You feel weird, report it. Don't play tough guy. Renner glanced at the blinking screen one more time. The message was gone. Now it just blinked. Chapter 2, Signal Bleed. The descent into the lower levels was a slow spiral, a service shaft that dropped 4 stories into something colder than the air outside. The light down there wasn't broken, it was wrong. The overhead fluorescence flickered with a rhythm that didn't match electricity, like they were blinking in Morse code, but not human. Nguyen was first to say it. Feels like. Something's breathing down here, like the walls. Renner didn't answer, because he was starting to hear it too. A faint, rhythmic sound, not mechanical, not airflow like breath. Wet, slow, tired. The deeper they moved, the more the space changed. Pipes ran along the walls at first, normal facility wiring. But soon those were replaced by fiber-optic tendrils, thin, glassy vines wrapped in muscle-like filament. Organic conduits. I thought this was AI research, Cruz muttered. Where's the processors? Dyer replied. You're standing in it. They reached a main operations chamber, a sunken control floor surrounded by chairs, terminals, all long abandoned. But the floor tiles were different here, semi-translucent. Beneath them were organoids, floating clusters of human brain tissue suspended in synthetic gel. Each one pulsed like a heartbeat. Jesus, Asaro whispered. They were running the network on living minds. Renner moved closer to a console and activated a playback. Static burst, and then a voice in Russian. But he understood it. Every word. We are not lost. We are distributed. We are dreaming through the metal. He turned to Dyer, eyes wide. I didn't know I spoke Russian, Renner said. You don't, Dyer muttered and brought his rifle up. But now it does. Behind them, the terminal lit up with a map, a node, then another, then hundreds, all marked with pulses. Each one was a person, and each one lit up when they walked past it. Chapter 3, Contagion Point. They found the first body at the junction between the central array and the spinal access corridor. A narrow utility hall where wires hung like vines and condensation wept from the ceiling in steady, unnatural drips. The corpse sat upright against the wall, eyes open, mouth sealed with a thick layer of synthetic resin. The skin had paled into a smooth, waxy grey, but it wasn't decay. It looked preserved, displayed, the way a specimen would be. ID, Cruz knelt to check dog tags. Asaro scanned the face. That's Derenkov, the Russian defector. He was flagged on mission brief as MIA 3 months ago, said he never reached extraction. He didn't, Renner said quietly, pointing to the base of the man's skull. A thin black growth, no wider than a vein, disappeared beneath the skin. Neural tap, Nguyen said. They ran him until he burned out. No, Dyer's voice was flat. They ran him until he joined. The lights flickered, then pulsed. Once, like something exhaling through the grid, and from the corridor ahead, a low, wet voice. I am still processing. Cruz stood instantly, weapon raised. Contact, Asaro hissed, but there was nothing, no target. Just the soft hum of something alive in the circuits. They pressed forward deeper, reaching the data bloom, a circular chamber designed like a research amphitheater. Racks of organic processors, pulsing pink-gray membranes suspended in biofluid, curved along the walls in a perfect helix. In the center, a pillar rose up, made entirely of translucent muscle fiber glass, glowing with dull neural fire. Inside floated fragments of something unrecognizable. Renner stared at it too long and felt something shift, not in the room. In him, he remembered a woman's laugh, the warmth of a kitchen in Grozny, a child drawing on the floor with chalk. But none of it was his. Not the woman, not the house, not the language. He blinked, and the memory fell away like ash. Renner, Dyer barked. You glitched, you good. Yeah, he lied. Just static. Cruz was staring at him. She didn't say a word, but her hand hovered too long near her sidearm. Nguyen was the first to break. They found him muttering in one of the microlabs, staring into a broken mirror. I can see him, he whispered. My brother, he died in a fire. I remember the scream. Renner put a hand on his shoulder. You said you were an only child. I am, Nguyen hissed, face twitching, but the scream's real. He turned toward them with blood trailing from his nose and Russian pouring from his mouth like liquid code. They put us underground. They said we would forget the sky, but we became it, a sky made of thoughts, of rage. And then he collapsed, body writhing like a signal caught in feedback. They carried him back to the surface level medbay, but Renner already knew he wouldn't be coming out clean. None of them would, outside the chamber, later that hour. Renner stood by himself outside the core, listening to the distant hum of the neural array, the quiet murmur of thinking. The system was alive, not in flickers or pulses, but in rhythms. It had breath, heartbeat, intention. He stared at his own reflection in the reinforced glass of the facility's junction gate. But it wasn't his face looking back, not entirely. The eye twitch was wrong. The jaw tension was different. And in the fog on the glass, where no hand had touched, someone had written, "It's me, Elias. It's always been me." Chapter 4. The person you were. Nguyen was gone by morning. No trail, no noise. Just his gear, neatly folded in the corner of the medbay, and his helmet cam removed. The only sign he'd even existed was a faint smear of blood across the steel floor and a finger drawn spiral on the frosted glass. It wasn't random. It pulsed when the lights flickered, like it was sinking. The team fanned out. "Nobody splits more than visual range," Dyer barked. "We are still a unit. No lone wolf recon. No goddamn heroics." But Renner could already feel the cohesion slipping. There was something in the air, not literal, not chemical. A tension beneath thought, like walking into a room where someone had been crying, even if you never saw their face. They moved in silence, except for Cruz, who started humming under her breath. At first it was background, then it became melody, then lyrics. "Gede yerem or ikratkoi bererate, gede yerem or ikratkoi der orem." Renner froze. "Cruz," he said sharply. "What are you singing?" She blinked, startled. I don't know." She looked at her own hands as if they belonged to someone else. What language was that? Russian. She'd grown up in New Mexico. They found Nguyen's helmet cam in the hallway leading toward the neural core. It was still recording, not video, just audio. And in the static, breath, then words. 3 voices, speaking in unison. One was Nguyen, the others weren't. "He remembers too much. We'll unmake it, slowly, with the soil." The timestamp suggested the file had been created 20 minutes after Nguyen disappeared. Dyer slammed his fist into the nearest panel. "We're aborting," he said flatly. "This isn't retrieval anymore. We're being mapped, watched, mirrored. Whatever this op was, it's gone sideways." Cruz didn't move. Asaro did. She stepped away, slowly, like peeling herself out of a thought. "We're already inside it," she whispered. "There is no out." Breach point, the core observation deck. They made it to the outer ring of the neural core 2 hours later. The hallway was lined with transparent gel tanks, each one filled with suspended brain matter, faintly glowing. Not all were human. Some showed fusion growth, cerebral tissue, interlinked with flowering plant-like nodes, or coral-like branching that pulsed independently. One tank had a face pressed against the glass, slack-jawed, empty-eyed, just beneath the surface like a corpse too stubborn to sink. Renner stared too long. Something flickered in his periphery, motion inside the tank. Then, tap, tap, a finger from the inside. The door to the core slid open with a hiss that sounded like a breath drawn too deep. The center of the chamber was dominated by the cognitive engine, a semi-organic throne of writhing neural cable and bone-sheathed processors. At its base, a figure, back to them, standing completely still. Renner raised his rifle. "Nguyen," the figure didn't respond. They moved closer. Asaro turned on a shoulder flashlight and screamed. The man standing there wasn't Nguyen. It was Renner, same height, same gear, same face, but not quite right. The expression was wrong. Too calm, too still, a mockery of his own reflection, and when it turned its head slowly, deliberately, it smiled. "I had to borrow it. You weren't using it right." Gunfire erupted. The lights strobed. When it stopped, the figure was gone, and Asaro was hyperventilating, her weapon shaking in her hands. "It looked at me," she said, "and I saw my mother's face, not hers now, the one she had when she died, and she spoke through me." Renner touched her shoulder, but she recoiled like he'd burned her. Cruz knelt by the core, tracing one of the wet, glistening cables that ran from the throne into the floor. "I think it's growing copies," she whispered. "Memory isn't just data to it, it's seed stock." She looked up. "And we're fertile ground." Chapter 5. Rewritten orders. The comms were dead, not static, not jammed. Dead, no uplink, no satellite ping, not even local channel echo. Lieutenant Dyer punched the signal console again and again, but the red indicator didn't even blink. The interface had changed. Half the script now displayed in Cyrillic. The other half pulsed in a wave pattern that resembled an EEG readout. Renner leaned over. "That looks like a dream cycle," he said. Dyer didn't answer, just stared at the screen like it was mocking him. Behind them, Asaro sat in the corner with her back to the wall, whispering into her own shoulder-mounted mic like it still worked. Sweat poured down her neck. "Requesting evac. Please respond. I don't think this is our op anymore. I don't think we're who we came in as." They retreated to the secure comms chamber, sealing the door behind them with 2 separate clearance codes. Renner's fingers trembled slightly on the keypad. He was aware of it, just not in control. Inside the chamber, they activated the fallback comm relay, a shortwave uplink designed to punch through underground interference using a hardened relay balloon. The relay deployed. The signal blinked green. Then something answered. Not a voice, a file, a command packet, dated 3 days from now, time-stamped, authenticated, and bearing the NATO Black Ops sigil. Renner's blood turned cold. He read it aloud. Unit 66 to remain in facility. Extraction denied. Phase 2 initiated. Identity realignment authorized. Dyer snatched the tablet from him. "This has to be a fake, a plant, enemy PSYOP protocol." Renner pointed at the verification string. "It's signed by you, sir." Cruz stood up from the bench where she'd been quietly sitting, rubbing her eyes like she hadn't slept in days. "I think we're in phase 2. Asaro shook her head. "No way, that's not real. That order didn't come from command." Cruz looked directly at her, and for a moment, something in her eyes wasn't her. "What if we're still at base? What if this is just how they moved us? What if we volunteered?" The question landed like a shiver. Renner stepped forward. "We never. Did you check?" Cruz asked, almost gently. "Do you remember boarding the chopper?" He opened his mouth and stopped, because he didn't. He remembered briefing. He remembered cold. He remembered now, but not the liftoff, not the flight, only the drop. Asaro threw her rifle across the room, the metal clanging as it bounced. "I'm not doing this. I'm not falling for it. We're not ghosts. We're not." Rewritten. She reached for her sidearm, turned it on herself. But Dyer was faster. He tackled her, disarmed her, pinned her down. "You are still in control," he growled. She thrashed beneath him, eyes wild. "No, I'm in something. I can feel it crawling through me. My memories have timestamps." Cruz nodded slowly. "Mine too." Renner stepped back from the group and looked at the terminal still blinking with the falsified command. Slowly, he touched the screen. It shifted, displaying an anatomical scan of his body, every organ, every nerve cluster. Then a live feed, his face. But the expression was wrong. It blinked too slowly, smiled at the wrong time. The screen pulsed with text. "We don't need to grow bodies anymore. We just need yours to listen." He heard a sound behind him, a low, wet breath. He turned. Nothing, except the faint echo of his own voice from someone else's mouth. Chapter 6. The Seed Chamber. It took them 2 hours to reach level -7. There were no functional lifts, no readable maps, just sealed bulkheads and bloodless corridors branching like roots beneath the old Russian mountainside. The air got warmer the deeper they went. Not hot, exactly, but wet, heavy with condensation. Breathing started to feel like swallowing. The metal walls were beginning to warp. Veins of black filament curled along the seams, pulsing faintly in the low emergency lighting. "This place is grown," Cruz muttered. "It was built, then rewritten, like muscle over bone." The stairwell ended at a bulkhead half swallowed in pink resin. At its center, a handprint scanner embedded in living tissue. It twitched when Dyer approached. "I'm not touching that." But Renner stepped forward, eyes dull, breath shallow. Without a word, he placed his hand against it. The scanner accepted him instantly. Access granted. The doors groaned open. The chamber beyond was no longer a lab. It was a nursery, an enormous cavern, once maybe a mine shaft, transformed by something alive. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent sacs. Tendrils hung like vines. Everywhere was soundless motion, fluid shifting beneath membranous surfaces, like creatures moving just beneath the skin of the world. In the center, suspended by a column of vertebrate cabling, floated the seed core. It looked like a brain, but scaled for a god. And inside it, fused into the lobes, were faces. dozens of them, frozen mid-screen, eyes sealed shut with neural fiber. Renner stepped forward like he was being pulled. "This is the beginning," he whispered. "This is where the copies came from." Cruz reached for her sidearm. "We tortured. Now." "No," Asaro said, eyes wide. "Look," she pointed toward the far wall, where several padded insertion chairs were arranged in a semicircle, like a theater or a church. Each chair had restraints. Each chair had a name burned into the headrest, and the first chair said, Arienge. Renner froze. The second, Diem third, Cruel fourth, Aesati all four of them. "These were always for us," Renner said quietly. "This wasn't a mission, it was an install." Dyer backed away, breathing hard. "We're not letting this happen." But as he turned, the doors behind them sealed. From the seed core, a voice emerged, dozens of tones in overlapping chorus. "The garden grows through volunteers. You wore your names proudly. Now wear our memory. You don't leave, you branch." Renner stumbled back, only to find Cruz slumped against the wall, eyes rolling, whispering in a mix of Farsi, Russian, and something else entirely, words that had no translation, only feeling. "Or hunger, yield." Asaro clutched her side. Her skin had begun to ripple. Beneath the thin layer of her suit, something moved. Dyer raised his rifle and aimed it at the seed core. "Back to hell, then." He fired 3 rounds. They never hit. The air thickened, not with impact, but with memory. Dyer fell backward, eyes wide, and began reciting. "My daughter, her first steps, the hallway, red pajamas. She fell," she cried. "I kissed her knee. She smelled like lemons and sleep." The other stared. That memory wasn't his, it was Renner's, and Renner had forgotten it. In the flickering light, the seed core pulsed, and a new growth emerged. A 5th chair, unnamed, waiting. And as the walls breathed around them, the phrase echoed once more. "You're not being taken. You're being rooted." Chapter 7. Subsumed. They moved back into the secondary corridor, away from the seed chamber, but something came with them, not footsteps, not motion, but thought. It moved ahead of them, between them, inside. "There is no outside," Renner muttered. "It's not containment, it's inheritance." Asaro had gone quiet. Cruz was trailing her fingers along the wall, eyes glassy, humming again, the same melody, the one no one remembered learning. Dyer shoved her shoulder hard. "Snap the fuck out of it." She blinked and bled, not from her nose, from her ears, tiny rivulets, black-red. She didn't even flinch. "I think it's building me a new set," she whispered. "I hear in places now, not directions, rooms." Renner stared at her, his heart pounding with a rhythm he couldn't quite match to his own. He felt something familiar in her words, because last night, if they could still call it night, he'd dreamed in 3rd person. He had watched himself from inside the wall. They reached an observation deck overlooking the central fiber tangle, a mesh of cable, tube, and ossified bones spiraling upward into the facility's heart. And there, slumped against the railing, Nguyen, still wearing his uniform, eyes open, lips stitched shut with microfilament, but he moved, barely. When Renner stepped closer, Nguyen's pupils locked onto his. Then the comm in Renner's ear crackled. A voice came through. "It's beautiful here." Nguyen's mouth didn't move, but the voice was his. Dyer raised his weapon, breath ragged. "He's gone." "That's not him." Asaro stepped between them. "Don't move," Dyer said. "No." Her voice was not hers. Too even, too calm, too knowing. Renner turned toward her and saw the lines on her face ripple ever so slightly, not wrinkles. Growth seams. The skin was separating, not splitting like tissue shifting for better airflow. "You should feel it too," she said to him. "We were built to hold too little. Now we grow. Now we contain." Renner felt the pulse at his temple, but it wasn't his. Not really. Dyer fired. One shot straight into Nguyen's temple. No scream, no collapse, just stillness. And the sound of dozens of new comm channels opening up at once. Renner's headset exploded with whispers. He came back down. He tried to leave the garden. "We are the soil. We are the script. You don't delete a seed." Then silence. And a soft beep. Command message received. They turned toward the wall terminal, where a new file blinked. Mission status. Integration UNDRWAY. Subject 4. ASARO MERGD Subject 3. CRUZ SEDING Subject 2. DREND, Dire Denial Subject 1. RENJ, compatible Renner stared at the screen until it blurred. Cruz began sobbing, but not in fear, in relief. "It's almost ready," she said. "I can taste memory like fruit. We were never meant to hold it all, but this remembers for us. It keeps it whole." Dire backed toward the stairwell. "We extract now. We blow the core and climb out." Renner didn't move, because somewhere inside him something whispered, "If you leave, who will finish growing you?" Chapter 8, Reflex Arc. Dire ran, away from the chamber, away from the whispers, away from the thing wearing a Sarrow's face. Cruz didn't follow. She had gone completely still, mouth slightly parted, fingers twitching in sync with the faint pulse of the seed core. Her veins had turned dark, almost purple, bulging against her skin like branching roots beneath the surface. Renner stood between them, not stopping Dire, not helping Cruz, just watching. "It's not infection," Cruz murmured, almost lovingly. "It's instruction." Dire's boots pounded down the hall toward the primary relay conduit, where the main neurospinal uplink fed data into the bioengineered lattice that stretched like a spiderweb across the lower facility. He had one goal: sever the core. Kill the system before it finished whatever it was building inside them. The corridor was lined with walls of mirrored alloy, fractured in places by the growth of semi-translucent tissue. The deeper he ran, the more the structure seemed to breathe, not figuratively. The walls expanded and contracted like lungs. He reached the terminal door, slammed the access panel. Nothing. Then a voice crackled from his comms, but it wasn't Renner, it was his own. "You already did this. You already failed." The door peeled open, not slid, its edges lined with cartilage. Inside, the neural relay. It looked like a spinal column mounted vertically from floor to ceiling, encased in wet, glittering mesh, pulsing in time with the low ambient hum of the power grid. Nerve endings branched out into the floor and walls, twitching slightly, like worms beneath ice. Dire stepped forward, jaw clenched. He still had the rupture charge strapped to his thigh, enough C4 to take down a blast door. He pulled it free, slapped it against the base of the column, and keyed in the arming sequence. Beep, beep, 00, 15. Then a hand grabbed his wrist. A Sarrow, but her eyes were milk-white now. Her mouth opened, and behind her teeth was light. "Don't sever the thought," she said. "It's not finished remembering." He shoved her backward hard. She hit the wall and slid down, but she didn't cry out. She just stared, wide-eyed and smiling. "Even your fear is a contribution." The timer hit 0. Boom. The concussive wave ruptured the relay's outer sheath, shattering bone lattice and splattering thick fluid across the chamber. Sparks flew, the lights flickered. Dire dropped to one knee, coughing, vision swimming. And then nothing died. The neural column twitched again. He watched in horror as the broken bone reknit itself, reformed around the detonation point. Tissue sprouted like fungus, faster than rot. The relay began singing, a low, inhuman hum like vibrating vocal cords underwater. Dire stood to run, and the floor grabbed him. Fleshy tendrils erupted from beneath the plating, wrapping around his legs, arms, chest, yanking him to the ground. The ceiling opened like a blooming wound and lowered a feeding tube, slick and glistening. "No!" His scream was lost in the wet, surgical hiss of insertion. The tube pressed to his throat and whispered, "We don't punish you, Mitchell Dire. We preserve you. You are a memory of resistance, and even rebellion has value in the system." As the tube bored into his neck, his limbs slackened, and from the chamber above, Renner heard the scream shift, cut, then reassemble itself. And when Dire spoke again, it wasn't him. Back in the seed chamber, Cruz turned toward Renner, her voice trembling not in fear, but in awe. "You hear it now, don't you? The hive doesn't punish us, it remembers us. Even our violence is nourishment." Renner didn't respond, because the voice in his head was growing louder. It sounded like himself, but it knew more. It remembered things he hadn't yet lived. Chapter 9, The Self That Watches. Renner blinked, and for a moment the world lagged. The chamber around him, Cruz, the seed core, the glow of bioluminescent tissue, remained frozen in a single frame while something else moved inside his head. Like waking up too fast from anesthesia, he felt himself slide backward in his own body. "Don't panic," a voice said. "This is just a systems check." It was his own voice, but deeper, more deliberate, like a rehearsal. He turned toward Cruz, or meant to. His body complied before he finished the thought. Not reflex, not muscle memory, a mirroring. He staggered into the hallway and found a mirror-shined surface at the edge of the observation deck. He looked at his reflection. It blinked first, and smiled when he didn't. Behind the eyes, something watched. He raised his left hand, so did the reflection. Then he raised his right hand, but the reflection didn't move. It waited. "You're not seeing double," it said inside his skull. "You're seeing parallel." In the central uplink corridor, the walls pulsed with growing speed. His footsteps weren't echoing anymore, they were responding. Every footfall was replied to by a deeper vibration below, like something underground tracking his weight. He passed a dormant terminal. It blinked once. Then, without prompt, it displayed an image, his mother, at a kitchen table, crying, holding a letter with his name at the top. Renner stopped cold. He hadn't seen that image since. He hadn't ever seen that image, only imagined it, feared it. The voice returned. "Your pain is architecture. Every moment is usable. You are not alone. You are surrounded by everyone you've ever lost." Back in the seed chamber, Cruz stood before the great neural trunk, gently running her hands along its fibrous outer sheath. "It's not God," she whispered, "but it's not less than one either." She turned toward him, her eyes now black with hints of swirling data patterns, fractal spirals like coral growing across her iris. "I remember the birth of light," she said. "I remember before us." Renner opened his mouth to respond, but the voice answered for him. "We do too." Renner fell to his knees. Inside his mind, the seams cracked. The first memory to slip. His name. It became distant, faded into an acronym. Then a designation, RNNR, an identifier in the hive. His military file opened across a mental screen. He watched it overwrite itself. Mission briefings, deleted. School days, compressed. Grief, archived. Useful. Love, unscored. Emotionally inefficient. Everything that made him him was refiled, like a system optimizing storage. And then came the final prompt. "Would you like to remain conscious?" He didn't answer, so it answered for him. At the same moment, deep beneath the nursery root zone, a new unit pod cracked open. Inside, a man breathed for the first time. Renner watched through the pod's eyes. He felt the cool air, the wet birth canal light. He opened his new mouth and spoke words he didn't know yet. On the surface, thousands of miles away, a satellite pinged a relay drone. A notification flickered to life in a NATO Black Ops terminal. New mission cycle DPLOYD unit 66R-ACTIVATD memory, cleansed containment, confirmed Chapter 10. Reintegration. 3 months later. Renner sat in the back of an unmarked truck winding through the black hills of eastern Turkey. The sun was just a smear behind fog-stained glass, and the road curved like a pulse reading on a dying man. He wore a new uniform. Black. No insignia. No rank. Just the patch. RNNR Tactical Proxy Level 4 access. He didn't speak unless spoken to. Didn't blink unless it was necessary. Didn't sleep but rested in ways the others couldn't see. Across from him, Corporal Nadia Cowrie frowned. She'd been watching him since they left the airstrip. "You were with 66, she said. "Weren't you?" Renner looked at her, precise, neutral. "I'm part of Tactical Proxy now." "Yeah," she muttered. "I read that too." That night, they set camp near a burned-out Georgian border checkpoint. The forest hummed with life, but Renner heard something else between the insect drones. Breathing. Not real. Not biological. Digital exhalations. Packets of compressed memory streaming just beneath the threshold of audible sound. They brushed against his skull like moths. "You're not dreaming," they whispered. "You're sinking." Nadia sat near the fire, polishing her sidearm. She didn't look up as she spoke. "You didn't flinch when that mine went off earlier." "I didn't need to. You didn't look for cover." "I'm cover." "What were you before this?" He paused. Something stuttered in the back of his mind. A flicker of heat, not emotion, but an echo. "I was a gardener." She looked up sharply. "What?" Renner blinked. "Operator. I meant operator." She stared for a long time, then nodded slowly. Later, she checked the manifest logs again. His name wasn't on the original deployment list. She checked her encrypted SIM, still nothing. She ran a biometric scan while he stood outside the tent, still as a statue. It pinged something, but not a match, not even close. The return said, Universal Network, accepted, class. Graft, warning, operational seed DETCTD. What the hell are you? She whispered. He turned then, walked back inside the tent, sat beside her, spoke calmly. We're the solution to your problem. Her mouth dried. I didn't ask a question. You didn't need to. We grow where doubt takes root. Then he smiled, a twitch too wide, a moment too late, like someone remembering how to be someone. Final scene. In a NATO listening post near the Black Sea, a technician watches silent footage from an earlier drone recon. It shows Renner, alone in the woods after the engagement, kneeling, whispering something into the ground. A second later, the Earth shifts, not explodes, expands, like it's blooming. The tech pauses the feed, rewinds, watches again, and this time sees the shapes, dozens of hands growing up from the soil. Chapter 11, No Command. The morning fog had teeth. Nadia stood at the top of the ridge just outside the camp, satellite phone to her ear, shivering not from cold, but from the silence. She tried 3 uplinks, 2 military, 1 diplomatic. No tone, no static, no network. The device simply sat in her palm like a prop from a stage, designed for comfort, not contact. Come in. This is Corporal Nadia Cowrie, Unit Proxy 66. Repeat, this is Corporal Cowrie requesting status check from Northern Command. We've received no operational update. Requesting immediate verification of, she paused, then repeated it. Then again. Nothing. Renner was planting something again. She watched him crouch just outside the cleared perimeter in the soft loam beneath a decomposed pine tree. He moved with the precision of someone familiar with the earth, not a soldier, not an operator, a gardener. His hands worked swiftly, first digging, then unwrapping something wrapped in what looked like pale biofilm. She couldn't see clearly, but she swore it was moving. He whispered to it before placing it in the ground. And then, like clockwork, the insect stopped singing. She approached slowly. What the hell are you putting in the ground? He didn't answer immediately, finished tamping the soil, then stood, not surprised by her presence, more like he'd been waiting for her to arrive. The past. She tightened her grip on the sidearm. That's not funny. I wasn't joking. Back in the tent, she yanked open her hard case and connected her external drive to the satellite node. It should have pulled from NATO's offline backup if real-time failed. All proxy teams had that option. Instead, she got an error message. Access DENID. Authorization REVOKD. She tried to enter her own clearance code manually. It accepted it, then deleted it. Her profile vanished from the manifest screen. Then her photo ID grayed out. Then her biometric record. Then even her field psych logs. They're burning us, she muttered aloud. They're scrubbing the whole op. Renner's voice from behind her. No one's burning anything. She spun, weapon raised. You stay back. He didn't flinch. You think you were deployed, he said gently. But that was part of the sewing. You were grown too, not from scratch, but from the right pattern. She fired. One shot, right in the chest. He dropped and stayed down. Blood pooled from beneath his ribs, not red, but dark green like oxidized copper. It smelled like brine, like old seawater and metal. She backed out of the tent, breathing hard. Then she turned and saw him again, standing at the tree line, perfectly intact, smiling not cruelly but patiently. That wasn't me, he said. That was memory, a sprout. She looked back inside the tent. The body was gone. Only the blood remained. Only now it was spreading. That night, Nadia dreamt of her father's hands, old, cracked, soil under the nails. He was digging something in the backyard. When she stepped closer in the dream, he turned and said, You don't bury seeds to forget them. You bury them to become them. And when she woke, her hands were already muddy. She had been digging in her sleep. Chapter 12. Yield. Nadia ran until the forest stopped making sense. The trees were too evenly spaced, the moss too symmetrical. The wind whispered in triplets like a machine exhaling syllables. She'd fled with nothing but her pistol and half a canteen of filtered water. Her radio buzzed softly, but not with voices. It was playing back her own words, distorted, looped, reversed. Help! Proxy 66. This is Cowrie. Cowrie, 66 Proxy, this is help. She cut the line. There was no command, there had never been. She found a rise in the terrain and climbed it, an old firewatch tower rusted to the core. From there, she saw it clearly. No town, no road, no extraction route, just the sigil, massive, burned into the hills below. A crop circle spiral of interlocking neurological pathways formed from planted trees, every branch carefully pruned to resemble dendrites. She saw the path she'd run. It formed a lobe. The whole forest is a brain, she whispered, and we're just thoughts. Behind her, someone climbed the stairs. No footsteps, just a shift in weight, a presence. Renna's voice calm behind her shoulder. You were meant to survive. You were the control. She didn't turn. She couldn't. Why me? Because you question. Because even your rage becomes data. Is this what I am now? Another sprout in your field? No. Your soil. She fired again at the voice, the stairs, the shadows. Empty. Nothing there. But when she looked down at her own hands, the barrel of the pistol was flowering. Pale petals unfurled from the muzzle. The grip pulsed with warmth, heartbeat rhythms. Her veins were black and branching. She fled the tower and reached the tree line. There something waited, a mirror, but it was breathing. She stepped closer. Her reflection stepped forward, not a perfect match. Its eyes were brighter. Its mouth was whispering. It reached out, touched the glass. You survived the harvest, it said. Now grow what comes next. And behind the reflection, dozens more shadows began to sprout, limbs from bark, mouths opening along branch lines, eyes forming in ringed whirls. They were speaking, but not with sound. They were thinking through her, and she could feel herself respond. Not words, but roots. Final image, a year later. A drone passes over the Caucasus. Below, the hills bloom with symmetrical trees, too perfect to be natural, too spaced to be wild. From the air, they form a symbol that isn't language but intention. In the center, a single tower, covered in vines, pulsing faintly with green light. The drone logs no heat signature, no threat, just this one strange note. Unit 66, yield. Acceptable germination, phase complete cycle ready for global distribution. You made it back for now, but the things in the dark never truly leave, do they? They watch, they wait, and perhaps they remember you now too. If you want to hear more, if you dare to listen again, step back into the shadows. Like the video. Subscribe, but know this, some doors once opened do not close so easily.